All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the upcoming product updates for both Adobe Commerce and Magento Open Source here at Meet Magento Romania. For those who aren't familiar, my name is Erway. I'm a group product manager here at Adobe Commerce. I'm based here in the Austin, Texas office. So I'm actually broadcasting from the office this morning here. And so again, hope everybody's doing well. And we've got some exciting things to share with you, both in kind of what we're doing and how we're doing it. I know there's a lot of excitement around the community, and I think ultimately, this is a great time to be part of that community, a great time to be part of Magento, a great time to be part of really where we're growing and where we're heading from an Adobe perspective. So if you step back, though, it's important to reflect the current state of both Adobe Commerce and Magento Open Source, and this is something that we've continued to share throughout the year. And if you look at this, there really isn't a single area here that is targeted to kind of one persona versus another. Ultimately, we're creating great experiences for developers, partners, merchants alike. But as part of that, our goals and really what really drives us is improving the overall developer experience. You heard a lot from Christian Partika on my team on what that looks like from an API GraphQL perspective. We're adapting for a mobile first economy. So we've done some tremendous work, and we've got some really significant launches happening with Venya and our P2B Studio offering. And that extends beyond with what we've done with Luma, right? And so we're also optimizing for speed and need for change. We understand the platform technologies continue to change in a world where really everything is becoming more composable, everything is becoming more headless. So now more than ever, we need to look at decentralized and really modular solutions to be part of that. And ultimately, we're all in the experience business, right? Really people really think and buy experiences more than ever. And so throughout the course of all of this, we're really trying to make sure that we put our best foot forward with creating those superior shopping experiences, but then also finding ways and making sure that the business users can manage them as well. So these are, I would say maybe some guiding principles and really the current state of how we're doing things, but this ultimately isn't targeted at one product, one persona, one segment than another, but we're continuing to use this as a way to help drive us. But ultimately, this all starts off with the developer experience in the ecosystem. Again, I think I'd mentioned, and you've probably seen, there's been a lot of change and a lot of excitement in this. And for us, again, it's a really exciting time to be part of this. Ultimately, there is still a lot of investment in open source, GraphQL, P2B Way, and even some renewed investment that's happening with some of the work that's happening to core. And none of this would be possible. Our work today wouldn't be possible with the years and years and years of the extensions, the contributions, and the customizations that continue to be the number one reason why our customers choose Magento Open Source and Adobe Commerce along the way. And there's a lot of great stats behind that. Even to date, we've got over 4,000 extensions that are built and managed as part of Marketplace in our developer community. Our contributions, even this year, have been over 12,000. It's been done with more than 400 individuals and 70 partners. And you'll see that in each and every release, including the most recent one with 243 back in August. But now more than ever, again, as you start to see us grow and as you start to see a lot of work that's happening here, a lot of kind of our DNA can get lost with all the different changes that are happening. And I think for us, it's more important to understand really the core and really the flexibility that really brings us back to where we are. And so again, as we think more and more about this, we haven't forgotten about the developer ecosystem. We've had a lot of great talks, and we had a lot of others from Adobe who continue
Sorry to interject, Eric.
Yeah.
Just a second, I think it's not the right slide selected.
Okay.
People are waiting for the slides to change, so maybe check your
All right, let me try that real quick.
Okay.
Sorry about that. All right, let me try one more time here. Sorry about that. All right, let's share the whole screen. All right, Vlad, how is that?
I think it's much better.
Okay, very good.
I'll let you.
All right, thank you so much. So extensions, contributions, and customizations are the heart of what we're doing today. And ultimately, again, our developer ecosystem is really what inspires us and has been critical as much as it has been in the past as it is in the future. But ultimately, there's been a lot of evolution. And again, this is something that we've shared in some cases for quite some time. And there's a lot happening behind the scenes. As Kaylin Jordan and I were just talking recently, there are a lot of moving pieces. And the reality is that it can be a lot to keep up with. And if you look back at our past, even with Magento 2.0 that was released in 2015, we had a very coupled approach. The front end, the APIs, the back end were in one solution. That affected things like, obviously launches themselves, contribution, what have you. And we're really have fast forwarded into a presence that established itself back with Magento 2.3. For those who aren't familiar, we have a new front end in play that's called Venya. It's based on PWA Studio. It is an alternative at the moment for what's happening with Luma, and GraphQL is really powering this. Christian talked a lot about that. We are essentially complete for the B2C cases. We are near complete with the B2B, but our work is not done. Our no work on APIs is really ever done. But we feel like we're in a really good shape to set ourselves up for the future. But what does this mean? If you're using open source, you're covered. If you're using Adobe, you're covered. If you're using Commerce, you're covered as well. And ultimately, even with some of the work that we're doing with our next generation storefront that is Venya based, we've seen a lot of significant launches. There's a whole talk that Elena has done, and you've seen some really great successes with key launches that are happening with named customers. There's over 300 examples to date that we've seen using Built With. About 150 of those are really sizable production level customers. We're also preparing for the marketplace. So not only GraphQL extensions, but also PWA themes and extensions will be available first party that today are available third party for that. And again, just as equally proud of what we've done, but really how we've done it. We've got our own community in some cases for this future that is based in this PWA base that's over 2,700 and 200 and roughly half the contributors alone from open source are all fueling the future of what we're doing here. But again, we haven't forgotten about the past. We understand this, but the reality is we're just more decentralized than ever before. But we just want to kind of talk about this and kind of set the stage for a lot of the product updates that are coming to date. And really the reality is where we are moving more towards a headless future that we've been talking about to some degree. But ultimately, when you look at this, our vision for commerce really is about superior shopping experiences. And the way that we look at this is really our vision is not surprising with Adobe. It starts and ends with experience. The future where customer experience is paramount. All customers really are using digital commerce. We're enabling the world's best brands to deliver the world's biggest commerce experiences. And that still reigns true. This is something we're consistently showing and sharing across the board. It is well more than just a commerce experience. And in many cases, it's well more than just the web itself. And so we continue to look at these across the board to make sure that every touch point is covered, that we're creating APIs to enable the possible. And then we are optimizing ourselves for your unique business model and advancing our roadmap along the way. So let's get into some of the Q4 highlights to date. We're actually coming up on a pretty busy week here in the Austin office, which is going to be around our 243 P1 and 237 P2 GAs that are happening. Those are coming next week though, and we've got some mid-quarter releases like product recommendations, PWA Studio, and a few others that are in the pipe for Q4 as well. So we've got a lot of work that's coming, and this is all built upon and built in advance beyond what we've done already with 243, which already started to build upon some of the work with product recommendations, which was initially released last year. We're starting to look at some headless enablement. We're looking at faster catalog onboarding and product recommendation units as well. So this continues to set the stage for us, though, to advance and really look at some of the core work. But again, making sure that we are mapping past, present, and future along the way. Quick reminder, as we start to think about what we've done and what we're doing for open source, one of the big achievements this year was our release of Magento, really the page builder application to Magento open source. That was really months in the making. We've seen some really great feedback as part of that. And Elena and team have done a great job, not only opening this up and working with folks like Stas and others to look at contribution, but looking at those as vehicles for how contribution will look like at forums like Adobe Developers Live. We actually had a contribution day here at Meet Magento Romania, and we're starting to look at this as really a means of really a more comprehensive merchant experience that is available to everybody. So we were pretty excited about this with 243, again, months in the making, and we're excited to see your contribution as part of that. So beyond all of this, and again, you saw some of this from Christian, what we're doing here is really built on a modern and extensible headless strategy. If you look at with what we have and what we're building from, we have a great platform that we're building upon this. We're building APIs on top of this, and we are powering the possible with various options for web, but also for in-store, custom, and other situations as well. From a roadmap perspective, we continue to advance our work, certainly on the API side, where Christian and team are driving even new work going into 244, which is teed up for March, but also beyond that, certainly with an eye towards B2B, but really optimizing some of those use cases and scenarios that really make sense. And beyond that, things like performance and optimization are really, really something that we take into consideration. So we'll share some highlights that we've made as part of that recently, and really some substantial improvements to performance. So as we talked though about the end-to-end experience, it's hard not to overlook some of the work that we've done on the shopping experience. And so if you haven't seen this yet, and again, this applies both to open source and commerce, we've started to introduce the designer into the workflow itself. We know that the overall total cost of ownership, and the overall really the time to launch and really get involved with a particular site starts off with a designer, whether it's a template, a series of components, a developer-led motion, or really the ability to manage and deliver. And so you'll start to see aspects of UI kits, which are available for Venya. Studio, which helps you develop, remember, build, optimize, and deploy. Manage, which allows now with open source for Page Builder, and then also delivery, which now has options for even in the future state with Venya, and then soon to be released next year, Oasis, which is going to be our B2B variant of that. So ultimately, along the way, you have choice in this, and again, kind of coming back to the phrase decentralized. It's more important than ever to kind of keep up with all the different options you have, more so than not. We're not necessarily leaning one way or another, but we've got options that will help you as a business, whether you're a developer, partner, or merchant, pick and choose the parts that make the most sense for you. So let's talk a little bit about progressive web apps. From a roadmap perspective, again, Elena and team are doing a great job, and there's a lot of great information on pwastudio.io that'll help you get started in really just a matter of minutes, but also understand areas that are complete, areas that are in progress, and then some areas that are really just not going to be planned for coming over from essentially our coupled state into Venya. Ultimately, we're making improvements, and you'll start to see this with PWA Studio 12 for theming. So global styling is going to be coming up shortly after 12. Custom product attributes is key not only for B2C, but also B2B as well. Product shopping experiences. So the idea of really bringing an add to cart from the catalog page is something that will be coming next week. And we continue to focus on, with the help of some of our partners, on optimization. So Lighthouse performance, and really the end shopping experience, and in some cases the perception of performance are more important than ever. So you'll see a lot of these baked in, both with traditional cases, but also now with now that the CMS is Page Builder along the way. So those are coming up very, very soon. And we're continuing to look at designer and developer experience. Again, the more detailed roadmap of this is available on pwastudio.io. But we've got PWA Studio 12 coming out next week. We're looking at some proofs of concept for things like I/O, but you can host this where you like, and you're also looking at some improvements for UI kits. Again, bringing the designer into the equation, and then building upon some of the work that again Christian and team are doing on the GraphQL layer. The flow is very simple. The APIs get opened, we build the components and the references on top of that, and then we find ways to make this even more turnkey for merchants, again, of all sizes. And again, this this in many cases applies to both open source and commerce as well. This is just a great option, especially if you don't necessarily want to build this yourself. And we've had, again, a lot of great examples and some key customers that have launched along the way. So B2B is a big area for us, and so we did a lot of work with Magento 2.4 with this, and you'll start to see some B2B enablement with some of the key experiences around product recommendations, live search, and then also PWA as well. What you see here on the right is Oasis, which is going to be our brand new B2B reference storefront that'll have a series of essentially B2B components that resemble and are based on the B2B module that you're probably familiar with. And ultimately, for Adobe Commerce, this gives us a really strong offering that builds upon those GraphQL endpoints that we'd mentioned before, and again makes this more turnkey for situations that are going to be more complex, especially in a world as we're seeing where the majority now of our new sites are B2B enabled and B2B facing as well. So look forward to that and be looking to see more of that in 2022. So talked already a little bit about product recommendations. Recommendations continue to be a really great addition to our portfolio. And what's really nice about this is that this is done as a service. So for Adobe Commerce customers, we started to introduce visual AI, new recommendation types, and then new ways to start to manage this. But ultimately, our work continues, and we need to make sure that this works extremely well for B2B. We most recently released this for PWA as well. So we're starting to, even in our product lens, and even some of the new ones, support essentially the present and future all at once. And so we still give you options, and really still want to make sure that you're successful along the way, but with also the advancement that is happening on the edge with with key services, again, like product recommendations, live search, and others. And so super excited about this. A lot of this is powered behind the scenes with Adobe Sensei and is done at no additional cost for existing Adobe Commerce customers. So live searches is a brand new experience, brand new release this year. So this launched during the summer. So AI powered live search really is going to give you the fast search results that you'll want to see out of the box with regard to powerful merchandising and merchandising results, and really controls and reporting that will make you and your store even more successful. That is powered by and backed by the same technologies as product recommendations, which is AI based. It's Sensei based, and really starting to look at this in a way that's going to help you overall with your merchandising, conversion, and other considerations as well. So we're super excited about this, and then ultimately, the advancement here will start to tackle things like B2B, certainly P2B and others, and you'll start to see that as a theme where individual and net new products will be released as SaaS-based services on top of the core as you know it, and really give you an option to look at these in a way and really adopt these in a way that makes the most sense for you, and in some cases even outside of a traditional release cycle. So let's talk a little bit about performance. So performance has been a really big addition to our suite really since Magento 2.4.2. Performance is in many cases is really more than just table stakes. We had a really tremendous breakthrough. And you'll start to see some reports and some benchmarking on this that have allowed us to tackle 200 million effective SKUs. We're getting into complexity that we've never been able to reach with the current platform. We're looking at storefront response times now of under 2 seconds, and we're starting to meet the needs of page views that are well over 600K. And this is done in this case even without Fastly or CDN caching as well. So the type of scale that we're seeing even in current state is getting better and better every time. And this is thanks to Igor, Nishant, and many others who are really doing some hard work behind the scenes to tune this almost like a master mechanic and really start to hit some of the more complex cases, certainly that I think are attractive to B2C, but also equally attractive to B2B as well. Few points here on site management and reliability. So one of the things that we continue to hear from merchants is the work that's entailed with upgrades, whether it's a patch upgrade, a minor, or what have you. We've introduced a lot of work here, some of which you've heard here at Meet Magento Romania, to help look at the overall cost and complexity of upgrades. And so we've introduced upgrade compatibility tools. We actually have introduced site-wide analysis tools, so specific reports that will keep up with versions and really help you understand and optimize your site. And then also some new tools that will help with observability with cloud. If you haven't seen those yet, they're really great additions and really help you understand how to effectively manage and how to effectively optimize your site as well. So our strategy going into next year, and you're starting to see this really resides on kind of 3 major themes here. So we are really looking at ways to decouple levels of feature development from the core. We're emphasizing a lot of the work like with product recommendations, live search, and others away from this in a way to help with that overall cost of keeping up with upgrades. And so we've heard a lot of great feedback about that from our merchants. And ultimately, we still have a lot of work, and we continue to invest again in open source around the core itself, even with some renewed investment. We're looking at areas like GraphQL that give us more extensibility. But then beyond that, we're also looking at different ways to decentralize our contribution model. So the quality patch tool is a way of doing that. You'll hear more about that at Magento Association Connect from some of the teams that are working directly on that. So community contributions become a lot more nimble and allow you to pick and choose as a merchant versus having to think about a greater release. So that flexibility, again, going back to the DNA that has brought us here to begin with, has really not only affected what we've done, but also how we've done that. And then with a simplified release schedule, as you'll see here in just a minute, the calendar is now finalized and set for 2022. We understand the frequency of releases and really the cadence, the regular cadence is something that our merchants need to plan for. And so by reducing the frequency of those and really getting into a regular cadence, we also want to align ourselves to key dependencies. And so as you'll see in our open source roadmaps and some of the work happening there, we want to make sure that we're aligned with things like PHP release schedules as well, which are a key part of what we're doing. And all of the information is available today on DevDocs on the release page. And if you haven't seen that page, again, this includes the release schedule today. Again, you're going to see more detail around what this looks like, including where PHP 8.1 and other aspects will be released, in that case with 2.4.4. But you'll see, general availability. In this case, we're going to have a very busy week with 243 P1 and 237 P2 is open and transparent. The work behind that continues and can continue to be tracked, and you see it in GitHub. And you'll start to see more and more from us beyond just some of the key capabilities. Elena, Dave, and team are doing a great job on the PWA side. They just recently published, some great transparency on the work that we're doing. Again, the work that's coming, and the work that we may defer for customization as well. But beyond that, we've got a pretty exciting 2022 calendar year ahead. This is the cadence that we're going to be working towards. The specific releases in mind that probably are probably of most interest are going to be 244 in March, 245 in August, and you'll continue to share more and more of this, even more so than probably before, and really how the core, even with some of the changes, continues to be a big part of what we're doing. And again, the active investment that's happening here, especially on open source, where there's no plans to deprecate with what we're doing. It's just, in many ways, it's a matter of just keeping up with the cadence and really some of the pieces that are part of that. And so that's ultimately what we're doing, and kind of when we're doing it, at least in the short form. And you'll continue to hear and see more of us at events. You'll see more of us in forums, etc. And we're always making ourselves available for any questions along the way. So last slide here is really, our community is about getting involved. There's a lot of activity that's happening, certainly in October, with Adobe Developers Live just wrapping up. But here we are at Meet Magento Romania, and we've already had a contribution day. We've got several sessions from the Adobe team, as well as our key contributors that have been happening this week. Reacticon is happening next week with key key teams working on some great, really great improvements and really interesting ways, even in a decentralized way beyond the capabilities we've had today. And so if you start to look at this, it's really that idea around decentralization and really finding pockets of the community, working with them, that makes the most sense. And a lot of this will be explained at the Magento Association Connect meeting. So as the liaison for Adobe for the Magento Association, behind the scenes, we're doing a lot of work, and we have a lot of questions around things like transparency and really finding ways, really how we can connect with the end community. And so you'll hear a lot more from Josh and team in the next 2 weeks, as I'm seeing a lot of that come together behind the scenes. And that also includes things like the open source task force, which we've just started to assemble, and really are starting to look at, again, not only what we're doing, but also how we're doing it to better serve the community. And then last but not least, we've got Meet Magento Singapore, which I believe is a hybrid event happening next month. And so we're looking forward to that one. We'll have several of us participating in that. But we're all out there. We pride ourselves in not only what we do, but how we do it, even amidst the changes. And again, I think we're all looking forward to seeing each other in person again when things settle down a bit. So last but not least, I just want to say thank you. Again, thank you to Vlad. Thank you. Thank you to Innobyte and others for pulling this together. We know these events are a lot of work, and also thank you to the association that have helped with the guidance on doing some of this. We know it takes a village, not only for these events, but also our community. And as I've told many others, the community really is really keeps me going and helps me really bring a lot of feedback into the process from a product perspective. And so I'm ever appreciative, even more than ever before. And our door is always open if you have any questions. So
thank you, Eric. So while the audience formulate some questions in the chat that they're going to ask, let me just quickly ask you about feature things that might become open source and included in the community editions, like the recent and great addition to the community edition, which was Page Builder. So what other big surprises can we look forward to?
We can't have a surprise without being a surprise, right? So, yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a great question. The orientation of a lot of our net new features. I mean, PWA is a great example of that. Like, that is really community driven. GraphQL is the same. One of the things that we've done recently is we've invested a lot more in the core to keep up more now with pull requests from the communities. There's been a lot of changes, of course, behind the scenes, but we want to keep up with the core itself. But yeah, the surprises, we're always good for a surprise or two. Page Builder was probably the biggest one. That's something been asked for many, many years. There's nothing to share yet on anything new, but there's really, top of mind. We're always thinking of things. So
that's good to hear. You mentioned the open source initiative inside the Magento Association. So I want to make a reference to the MageOS letter to the community, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and you discussed it on several occasions in the past few weeks. It made quite some waves in the community. one of the things that they are talking about in the letter, and Willem and Vinay specifically, is a reference to a direction that Magento announced something like 2 years ago with Anton and Igor, announcing to move away from the monolith towards microservices. And Willem and Vinay are saying that that would make Magento even harder to start for other people to work with. So what would you say to those people who are worried that Magento will become even more complex and even harder to access?
It's a good question. So I'll probably take it in two parts. So I think one, I think we're committed to finding ways for really, again, the way we describe this after seeing the letter and others, there's essentially the functional and the non-functional changes that we want to see as part of this. So we talk about the functional changes. We've seen a lot of great pockets of innovation from Willem, Vinay, and others with Huva, with the open source movement and such. And for us, it's a matter of how do we connect basically the present to the future. There's a lot of great work that's happening at the API level that will help with that. There's a lot of questions around transparency and investment and things like that. And so we want to make sure that we tackle that. And we've got a working group in the form of the task force that should be getting started very soon. I think letters went out today for those who will be participating in this. And we want to hear more, right? And these are the things we used to talk about for many years. And so we want to find a way that we can technically connect the innovation that's happening maybe in some of the other pockets. We've seen this also with PW, like with Vue Storefront, with Scandi and others, like where there are different pockets that are decentralized. How can that connect to the core? And then the same core the same core is also going to serve some of the work that we're seeing and have been doing with Adobe, with AEN, with others. And so this idea around interoperability, API is going to be more important than ever. Components and so we had some questions on the components are in many ways the same components that power commerce and P2A are the ones in some of the more recent launches with AEM. And so we're serving and our goals are serving many needs, but we haven't forgotten about our past from that one. So I do want to make sure that we do answer the functional questions, but for me, the non-functional ones are almost equally important. For me, when I look at the letter, it's really about this energy in the community. And what I mean by that is you think about and I've only been here for about 7 years or so, but I think about some of the best moments where we've had these discussions and we've had dev exchange tables that are out the door and really talking through a lot of these hard questions together. And part of it is just finding ways to get that back and really talk more with each other than at each other. And that can be sometimes tough in the middle of a pandemic and things like that. And so I want to make sure that we really do keep that conversation going. We care dearly about really where this started off with. My leadership is fully supportive, and we continue to share the fact that we have no plans to deprecate open source, and we want to find ways to really capitalize on this energy that's happening. So in many ways, it's more so about the community than the open source piece. Obviously, open source is the product itself, but how do we find that, and then how do we evolve with pockets of this in this kind of new decentralized model? That's kind of where our head is, but we've got some work to do with the open source task force, and you've got participation on all sides to really think through and again try to figure out really what serves the needs for everybody across the board.
Right. You mentioned the task force for the open source, which I know has been in the works even before the open letter to the community from the Magento community. But what do you think was lacking in terms of effort for this creation, this open source task force earlier, a year ago or 2 years ago? Because the association has been here for almost 3 years now.
Yeah, I think from my standpoint, and again, I'm relatively new as liaison. What I've seen is really a need to find a way for us to adapt to all the change. And I think some of the changes, really in the product itself, and some of it is just situational, right? We've got pockets of communities, again, back to that decentralization concept. We've got pockets of the community that are in many different places. And I think, the pandemic has not served us very well. We don't have these chances to have the hackathons like we once had. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring a small part of that back with Contribution Day here. You'll see more of those. I've had a couple partners reach out and want to do like standalone hackathons again, just like kind of how we've done that in the past. And just to be honest, it's harder to do that virtually than physically. We saw a lot of energy, obviously, at Magento Poland because so much of that was in person. So we're just kind of finding a way of kind of how that was. There's just so much harder to do so. And I think the association's the same way. And I think the letter was just kind of a reminder that like, hey, there's a lot of energy here. And I think for me, it's less about the it's less about like open source, but really finding ways that we can all work together with all the changes that are happening in the product and in the market itself. And so, yeah, you're right. The the work towards that with Josh and team, what we're calling Magento Association 2.0, has been in the works for a couple months, and so we've had some input on that. The letter, I think, was just a reminder that, like, hey, here's a group of individuals we want to understand and really work with, and that's as much as product as it is policy and things like that. Ultimately, the goal of the association is to serve the community, and Adobe is just part of that. The association, as you know, is a nonprofit organization, so it works as kind of an intermediary, just similar to the Drupal Association and others, to make sure we achieve that. And this is a great way to bring feedback back into that for some of the things that have worked and some of the things that we need to address. And so I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the task force. I'm excited about some of the changes that I've seen behind the scenes, some of the things that we'll share in the next week or two. And we're also trying to do a couple small things as well. We're going to open up the open source roadmap a bit more. You're going to see a lot more new faces. So we're going to have to do some introductions here throughout this. There've been some names and faces change, but we want to find ways to do this that have, quite honestly, been a bit harder with the fragmentation and with us not necessarily physically being with around each other like we've been in the past. It's just been a limitation.
Right. And about that, I wasn't able to extract the news from you with future things that will be included in open source, but perhaps I can extract the news with the next question. When
Sure.
do you think we'll have the next in-person Adobe Summit with Magento Imagine part of it?
I've heard, don't quote me on this, I've heard that Summit's going to be in person next year, and as part of that, there'll be there's going to be a developer track like we've had. So crossing our fingers, and again, everything is a very dynamic situation, but I've heard at this point that's going to be that is on track for Vegas. But we're seeing pockets though of hybrid events. Poland was one, Singapore is another, and so we kind of have to dip our toe in that. And it's really, I think it's hard for partners, hard for personal for people, even like with different situations, even for travel. We're with Adobe, we're not traveling internationally, and so that makes it hard for that. So yeah, not trying to dodge the question. I think there's just a lot of like, let's wait and see. But I have heard at least that Summit, which will have a piece of this, there's going to be right now we're planning for that to be in person.
That sounds great, because Las Vegas is not in international travel for you, so no need for lifting of restrictions.
That is true, and that conference just isn't the same on Zoom. So
right, don't worry, it's recorded, so everybody will quote you on this.
Of course they will.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric, for your presentation and this great talk after the session. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much again for having me. Thank you to everybody for being part of this. And as always, please let myself, let my team, let us know if you have any questions or where we can help. We really do care about this and want to make sure that we're moving forward together. So,
okay. Thank you.
Great. Thanks again.